Proverbs 16 and 30 reads, "He that is slow to anger, he that ruleth it, he that taketh a city. I give all glory, all praise, and honor to you. I give double honors to the apostles and the elders. Great Millstone definitely do well. And as always, peace and salutations to all elect and society's truth throughout the four corners of the earth. I'm the brother Ira from the Great Millstone branch, the Gary Camp, coming into another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai. And, as you can see, open up with Proverbs 16 and 32, which I'm going to read again. Proverbs 16:32, "He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city." And, and this is something, we have to take heed to, while we're in this faith, man. Because, a lot of us, in this truth, especially being in this world, we're constantly vexed. And, some brothers, deal with anger issues at times. And, sometimes your anger, can blind you and lead you to do things that are completely off, And, Satan, he knows how to play, on that, man. He know how to, get you, provoke you to wrath, man. And the scriptures say what? Be ye angry and what? Sinneth not, Because Satan knows, he knows your weaknesses, and he knows how to get you to, to get carnal. Remember, this warfare that we're in is spiritual, and we have to remain spiritual. Speaking first and foremost to myself, be angry. And Satan's going to use people that's close to us to try to provoke us, man. We can't allow, we got to be able to identify that, okay, that's Satan, Sometimes, we make mistakes, it's part of the walk, but, we're in the times that we can't make those same mistakes as we did, in times past, man. Especially, in these times, it's like here. Looking for the scripture real quick. Be angry. Sin not. Yeah, bear with me. I put anger. That's what I gotta realize people provoke you. Gotta put the Lord saying, man. The scripture say what? The Lord's gonna pretty much fight our battles, man. The Lord said what? He's gonna, he's gonna judge our enemies. And when it's all said and done. But anyway, don't get this real quick. It says Ephesians 4 and 26, "Be ye angry and sin not, and let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Neither give place to the devil," man. So that's to get you to get carnal. That's his whole job, is to get you to get carnal. And then, like I say, use, people to provoke you, man. Whether it's people in this world, sometimes your loved ones, your woman, and you gotta be a spiritual man. The scripture say what? The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but spiritual. Let's get that real quick. Second Corinthians 10 and 2, and I read, "And I beseech you that you may not be bold when I am present with the confidence wherewith I think to be bold against some, which think of us as if we walk according to the flesh. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. So though we walk in the flesh, we don't war after the flesh." Remember, we're spiritual men, in these carnal bodies, man. So we gotta operate in the spirit. And it's easier said than done, but hey, we in some times, the same mistakes you made before, you can't, we can't make the same mistakes like, we did before, man. Now granted, the Lord, scriptures do say the just man falls 7 times and rises again, but You know, in the times, man, you know, the same mistakes that you made, you know, early in your walk, you can't make those same mistakes no more, man. You know? Anyway, it says, verse 4, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High to the pulling down the strongholds. You know, so that our weapons are not carnal, man. We gotta we gotta fight in the spirit. It's easier said than done, man. You know, that's why we gotta practice temperance. Temperance goes into self-control. And you know yourself better than anybody else know. You know your weaknesses. You know your strengths, man. You know, Galatians 5:22, it says, but the fruits of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. And temperance, that word temperance goes into self-control. You know, self-discipline, yeah, which we have to exercise in these times, man. Especially now more so than ever. You know. I'm just going through the spirit, you know. Just dealing with a particular situation, you know, in my life, so spirit jumped on me, just do a lesson, you know. Because the one thing I do learn, you know, in this walk, man, whatever we go through, you know, it's all for our learning, the good, the bad, the ugly. But, you know, we have to, you know, take what we go through and you know, and learn from it and also teach others, you know. And I'm speaking first and foremost to myself, you know. I think I'm a person. So I can bear with me. And I'm just going through the spirit. I ain't anything written down. Spirit jumped on me, couldn't sleep. So I'm like, no, I'll just do a lesson, you know. And we gotta be mindful too as well, you know, that Satan, so to say, be ye circumspect. Let's get that real quick. I'm gonna come back to that. First Peter's 5:8 reads, be sober, be vigilant. You know, we gotta be sober-minded, you know, sound, you know. You know, that and goes twofold as well, man. You know, especially, you know, if your brother, you know, you deal with, you know, drinking issues, which, you know, I myself deal with that at times, you know. I humbly admit, you know, that's why elders, apostles, they tell you, you know, brothers, you're gonna be drinking, drink at home. And even if you is at home, you know, you with a woman or somebody, you know, like to provoke you when you're drinking, you know, you shouldn't be drinking that, you know, around them, you know. You know, just giving them, you know, words of wisdom, words of advice. You know, this is what I'm learning, you know, in my walk. You know, be mindful who you drink around too as well. You know, you around a woman that always like to nag and, you know, provoke you to, you know, to anger then while you drunk, you know, or just period, you know, maybe you shouldn't, you know, you shouldn't be drinking, man. Well, not just even just a woman, just people in general, you know. But that also twofold as well, spiritual as well, being spiritually sober, you know. It says, verse 8, it says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. And we gotta be circumspect, because Satan's jumping on people, man. He can jump on, you know, your women, your children. Hell, Satan jump on your ass at times, man. Have you thinking, you know. And that's why I read earlier, man, give no place to the devil, man. You know. His whole job is to get you to pretty much get carnal, and when you get carnal, that's when you lose. You know, we're in a time where we got to be blameless, man. You know, these people got fucking spears on them, man. You know, last night was what so-called full moon. It was a full moon yesterday. You know the moon. You know, people where lunatic goes into something. You know, the moon. You know. which affects the people, man. You know, as I noticed yesterday, it's just like people just had spears on them, man. And you be trying to be cool and collective, and you be like, what the fuck? You know, spiritual attacks are coming more and more. It lets us know that we almost out this motherfucker, man. But we have to continue to fight, man. We gotta, like Scripture said, gird up our loins like a man. We gotta fight. You can't give in, man. You can't get weak. And I'm speaking first and foremost to myself, man. You can't give in to these spirits, you know, because, you know, Satan's job is to pretty much get you to go off, man. You know? It says, verse 9, who resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same affliction I accomplish in your brethren that are in the world. Because whatever you're going through, you best believe another brother's going through it. You know? That's why the Lord got the body for a reason, man. The brotherhood. You know, when you go through things, man, it's good to, you know, talk to brothers about things, because brothers, you know, we all catching hell, man. You know? But it says, whom resist steadfast in the faith. You resist Satan by what? Being steadfast in the faith. Having faith in the word, trusting in the Lord. You know, not trying to go out your own means or justify yourself. You know, Scripture say what? Proverbs 3 and 5. Because that's when you lose, when you trying to, you know, justify yourself and doing, you know, being carnal or doing something which it's going to bite you in the ass in the long run, you know. Proverbs 3 and 5, it says, trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not unto thy own understanding. You know, and then we go through these things also for our learning. So, you know, mistakes are necessary for growth. But you can't, once again, you can't be making the same mistakes over and over. You know. Proverbs 3 and 5, trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thy own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. You know, so you can't be wise in your own eyes, man. Trying to go out your own, you know, justifying yourself and doing some shit stupid, man. You know. Now, granted, you know, the Lord, you know, the Lord, you know, He allowed, you know, although we take blame in it, but the Lord allow you to make mistakes so He can teach you a lesson. You know, that's how we, you know, because Israel, we you know, Jacob's stubborn. You know, sometimes, you know, the Lord let you bust your fucking head a couple times till you finally get it. Like, you know what, I finally get it now. You know, and I say this too: anybody that's, you know, you're around somebody that calls you to go off or so, you know, like, you know, Scripture say, well, if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it off. You're around somebody that's always provoking you to anger and shit, you know, maybe it's just a time to move around, man. You know, whoever it may be, you know, maybe a, you know, family member, someone, a loved one close to you, you know, because we sometimes, man, you know, you can't have that type of spirit around you, man. You know, especially for brothers that have women, you know, a woman always nagging and shit, always trying to provoke you. Maybe it's a time for you to just move around. Because she could be a detriment to you in your walk, you know. You know, I'm just going through the spirit, you know. But you get the drift, man. I just want to do a quick lesson going into, you know, ruling your spirit, man, you know, just which is easier said than done, especially in the world where, you know, we constantly vex. You know, people always, you know, trying to provoke you to anger, get you to go off and shit, man, you know, but we gotta, you know, we're in some times where we can't allow these people, you know, or anyone to pretty much lose our crown, man. It's gonna say, well, let no man take thy crown. You know, that goes for anyone, even yourself, man. So, you know, hey, with that, you know, I pray the video was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashir Shai. I want to give all glory, all praises, and all honor unto Yahweh Bashir Shai Bashir Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, the great millstone. Definitely do well. As always, peace and salutation to Ophelek. And it's a sincere expression of truth throughout the four corners of Shalom. Baba.